You're listening to an exclusive production from Valio. Stop people-pleasing. Reclaim your inner strength and influence. Chapter 1. The Hidden Cost of Saying Yes. Have you ever noticed that gentle, persistent tug, that immediate, almost automatic inclination to agree to consent, to utter that simple, two-letter word, yes? It often feels like the easiest path, doesn't it? It feels like the quickest route to peace, the simplest way to keep the social waters smooth and unruffled. We say yes to the extra task at work when our plate is already overflowing. We say yes to the friend's request for a favor, even when we desperately need that time for ourselves. We say yes to the social invitation, even when all we crave is quiet solitude. In that moment of agreement, there's a fleeting sense of relief. The other person is happy. Conflict has been avoided. Harmony is preserved, at least on the surface. But beneath that immediate, easy satisfaction, a much deeper, more complex ledger is being kept, and the hidden cost of those untrue yeses is quietly, relentlessly chipping away at the foundation of who you are. Every time you agree to something that contradicts your genuine needs, your internal balance shifts. It's like putting a small, unseen weight on one side of a scale. At first, you barely notice the tilt. But as those small weights, those countless untrue agreements, accumulate, the scale of your inner life becomes deeply, painfully uneven. This hidden cost has many facets, and the first and perhaps most vital is the depletion of your energy. Think of your energy reserves like a beautiful, well-tended garden. When you say a true yes, an agreement that is aligned with your values and capacity, you are naturally and joyfully watering that garden. When you say an untrue yes, a compelled or obligatory agreement aimed only at pleasing someone else, you are effectively diverting that precious water away from your own roots. You come home at the end of the day and you feel mysteriously exhausted. You haven't necessarily done hard labor, but you are utterly drained. That fatigue isn't just physical, it's emotional residue. It's the energy you expended managing someone else's expectations instead of tending to your own vitality. It's the silent tax of having to smile and perform when your spirit desperately needed rest or honest expression. This leads directly to the second major toll, a silent, simmering resentment. Resentment is the ghost of a repressed no. When you deny your truth in order to accommodate another person, that truth doesn't just vanish. It curdles. It turns inward. It sits like a stone in your gut, and over time it begins to leak into your relationships, even the ones you cherish most. You might find yourself snapping at a loved one over a trivial matter, not realizing that the irritation isn't about the dirty dishes or the forgotten errand. It's about the week of self-denial you endured because you couldn't bring yourself to set a simple boundary. The irony here is profound and deeply painful. We say yes to maintain harmony, yet the resentment we breed inside ourselves becomes the most corrosive force against true connection. We sacrifice honesty for peace, only to find that this false peace is poisoned with bitterness. The third, and perhaps most devastating, consequence is the slow but certain disconnection from your real self. Who are you when you are not accommodating, pleasing, or performing? When you make a habit of prioritizing everyone else's comfort and feelings above your own, you begin to lose the sound of your own voice. The internal compass that guides you, your authentic preferences, your genuine desires, your clear limits, grows faint. It's a subtle form of self-abandonment. You are, in essence, telling yourself that your needs are less important, less valid, and less worthy of airtime than the needs of anyone who happens to make a request. This doesn't just lead to feeling lost. It creates an internal chasm. The person you present to the world, the agreeable, always available, endlessly supportive persona, starts to feel like a stranger to the person looking back at you in the mirror. You become so good at playing the role of the pleaser that you forget the script of your own life. When we are disconnected from our real self, we lose our center. We lose that grounded sense of calm authority that comes from knowing who we are and what we stand for. And when you lose your center, You become perpetually reliant on external feedback to tell you if you are okay. You become like a ship without an anchor, constantly blown by the winds of others' expectations and opinions. Think about the way this manifests in daily life. You agree to dinner at a restaurant you dislike because you didn't want to seem difficult. You spend your Saturday helping a neighbor with a project when you had planned to work on a personal passion. Each instance feels minor, but the cumulative message you are sending yourself is deafening. You are secondary. Your time is negotiable. Your preferences don't count as much as theirs do. This is not a sustainable path to real harmony. True, lasting harmony, the kind that feels calm, stable, and deeply satisfying, must be an inside job first. You cannot create a balanced environment outside of yourself if your internal world is chaotic and imbalanced due to constant self-betrayal. The initial act of people-pleasing is often rooted in a very kind and gentle desire. The wish to connect, the hope to be liked, the fear of disappointing others. These motivations are understandable, even beautiful, but the method, erasing yourself to keep the peace, is fundamentally flawed. It trades deep, genuine connection for shallow, temporary approval. To begin reversing this silent toll, we must first learn to listen more closely to that internal protest. Before the word yes escapes your lips, train yourself to insert a small, conscious pause. In that moment of quiet reflection, ask yourself a simple, honest question. Does this request align with my current capacity, my deeper commitments, and my genuine desire? You may notice a subtle physical response. Maybe your shoulders tense up, or your breath catches, or a faint wave of anxiety washes over you. These are not signs of selfishness. They are your body's clear, honest communication that your equilibrium is being threatened. They are the whispers of the no that is trying to protect your inner balance. Honoring that internal signal is the first step toward reclaiming your self-respect. Self-respect is not the absence of kindness. It is the foundation of it. When you respect your own time, your own energy, and your own commitments, you show others how they should respect you too. And when you operate from a place of respect, your choices, whether they are yes or no, carry a weight and a clarity that is undeniable. The goal isn't to become hard or inflexible. It's to become clear and centered. It is about ensuring that your generosity is a choice, not a compulsion. When you say yes from a place of true abundance, when you genuinely have the time, the energy, and the desire to help, that agreement carries a beautiful, pure energy. It strengthens the relationship and leaves you feeling energized, not depleted. But when you say yes out of fear, obligation, or a desperate need for external approval, it creates debt. A debt of time, a debt of energy, and most critically, a debt of self. Begin today by recognizing that the biggest commitment you have is to the balance of your own inner life. The greatest service you can provide to the world is to show up as a whole, centered, unresentful person. This requires an honest accounting of where your energy is truly going. Look at your calendar from the past week. How many commitments were made out of genuine willingness, and how many were made simply to avoid the discomfort of a polite refusal? This exercise in honest self-assessment is the beginning of the journey. It is the moment you decide to turn your attention inward, to start tending to the garden of your true self before offering your overflow to the world. Reclaiming your energy is not selfish. It is the very definition of sustainable living. It allows you to give generously from a full cup rather than grudgingly from an empty one. It allows you to maintain the harmony you crave, not by sacrificing your voice, but by honoring it. Stop seeing these untrue yeses as harmless courtesies. Recognize them for what they are: silent, incremental acts of self-betrayal that lead to depletion, resentment, and a profound disconnection from the vital core of who you are meant to be. Your journey toward true influence and strength begins the moment you prioritize the inner balance that only genuine self-honesty can provide. Take a moment to reflect on your commitments this week. Which yes feels the heaviest? What would happen if you simply paused before your next automatic agreement? Allow the subtle awareness of your own need to guide you toward a deeper, more sustainable sense of inner harmony. Chapter 2. The Illusion of Approval. We are wired for connection. It is one of the deepest, most fundamental human truths. From the earliest moments of our lives, the desire to belong, to be seen, and to be affirmed by the people around us is a powerful driving force. This inherent need for connection often manifests as a quiet, powerful quest for approval. Seeking validation can feel incredibly safe, almost like wrapping yourself in a warm blanket of social acceptance. When someone nods, smiles, or offers a word of praise, there is an immediate, pleasing warmth that washes over you. It signals that you are doing things correctly, that you are fitting in, and that your presence is welcome. For the person who has spent years perfecting the art of people-pleasing, approval acts like a necessary fuel. It's the metric by which you measure your own success and even your worth. You may find yourself unconsciously shaping your opinions, adjusting your demeanor, and editing your true self, all in pursuit of that fleeting, affirming light reflected back from someone else. The problem, however, is right there in the word, illusion. The safety of external approval is temporary, unstable, and ultimately profoundly enslaving. To rely on other people's opinions for your sense of worth is to hand over the keys to your inner house to a constantly changing committee. This committee has different tastes, different expectations, and different moods every single day. One moment, they might applaud your effort. The next, they might criticize your approach. If your worth is tethered to their applause, then when the applause stops, and it always does because people move on, their focus shifts, and their interests change, you are left feeling empty, anxious, and adrift. Think of approval like a candle flame. It offers warmth and light, but it is easily extinguished by the slightest draft of criticism, indifference, or misunderstanding. You find yourself spending an enormous amount of mental and emotional energy trying to shield that flame, to ensure the external world remains calm and compliant enough to keep it burning. This endless effort is exhausting and completely distracts you from building the true internal light that can never be blown out. We often seek approval because we confuse it with something much deeper and more enduring, respect. Approval says, I like what you are doing right now because it benefits me or conforms to my expectations. Respect says, I see who you are, I honor your boundaries, and I value your presence, regardless of whether you agree with me or meet my specific needs. Approval is conditional. Respect is foundational. The journey away from seeking approval begins with recognizing the chains it imposes. When you constantly adjust your behavior to win favor, you become a chameleon, always changing color to match the surrounding environment. This means that in any given situation, you are not presenting your real, coherent self. You are presenting the version of you that you calculate will be best received by that specific audience. This constant shifting has a devastating psychological toll. It erodes your sense of integrity, the feeling of being whole, undivided, and true to yourself across all situations. When you lack integrity, you feel fragmented. You feel that disconnect we talked about in the last chapter, where the public self and the private self are strangers. This fragmentation is a high price to pay for the temporary comfort of being liked. True influence, the kind that moves people and creates positive change, is never built on calculated compliance. It is built on unwavering, gentle consistency. People may not always agree with you, but they will always trust you if they know who you are and where you stand. So, how do we begin the delicate work of shifting our energy away from the external searchlight and toward our own inner center? The first vital step is to dismantle the myth of universal acceptance. The truth, gracefully understood, is that you will never be everyone's cup of tea. It is mathematically and psychologically impossible to please every single person you encounter. Trying to achieve this impossible standard is a recipe for perpetual disappointment and burnout. When you accept that not everyone will approve of your choices, and that's okay, that's just a normal facet of human diversity. a huge weight is lifted. You gain the freedom to choose your actions based on your own internal values, rather than external opinion polls. The next step is to cultivate a deeper sense of worth that doesn't rely on constant applause. This kind of worth is an inherent state, not an earned reward. It means recognizing that your value is not a calculation based on your utility, your accomplishments, or your agreeableness. Your value simply is because you exist. This shift involves moving from the question, "What do they need me to be?" to the much more empowering question, "What do I know to be true for myself?" When you find yourself reaching for validation, pause and redirect that energy inward. Instead of asking someone else, "Did I do a good job?" or "Are you happy with this?" try asking yourself, "Am I proud of the effort I put into this? Did I act in alignment with my core values? Do I feel at peace with my decision?" These questions anchor you to your own experience. They shift the locus of control from the fickle outside world to the stable ground of your own conscience. This is the act of self-validation, and it is the only validation that truly sustains you. Self-validation is not arrogance or defiance. It is an act of quiet, confident self-respect. It is the graceful recognition that your feelings and your perspective hold just as much weight in your life as anyone else's. Consider the dynamic of a healthy relationship, whether it's a partnership, a friendship, or a professional connection. In the most fulfilling relationships, you are not constantly trying to earn your place. You are valued for your unique perspective and contribution. True connection thrives on authenticity, not on compliance. When you abandon your true opinions for the sake of agreement, you are actually denying the relationship the best part of you. You are withholding your unique color and texture from the tapestry of the connection. The relationship built on compliance is brittle and shallow. The relationship built on honest self-expression, even when it involves polite disagreement, is resilient and deep. To reclaim a centered sense of worth, we must also consciously change the way we internalize criticism. For the people-pleaser, criticism is often interpreted as a catastrophic rejection of their entire self. The moment someone voices disapproval, the internal panic button is hit, triggering a desperate need to repair, apologize, or adjust. Instead, practice seeing criticism not as a declaration of your unworthiness, but simply as feedback. Feedback is information about a single action, a single statement, or a single interaction. It is not a permanent tattoo on your soul. When feedback comes your way, you have the right and the responsibility to filter it through your own clarity. You can receive it gracefully and then in the quiet of your own mind decide. 1. Is this feedback accurate? Does it point to a genuine area for growth or adjustment? If so, great. Use it and grow. 2. Is this feedback simply a reflection of the other person's preference or mood? Is it a mismatch of style rather than a flaw in character? If so, you can observe it, thank the person for their input, and let it pass without internalizing it as a judgment on your worth. This process transforms you from a powerless recipient of others' judgment into an active curator of your own personal development. It is a quiet revolution when you stop needing the world to tell you that you are okay. It frees up the energy you previously spent performing, worrying, and chasing approval. That liberated energy can then be reinvested into activities that actually build genuine, deep self-trust. Pursuing your true interests, spending time in quiet reflection, and honoring your promises to yourself. The most influential and truly magnetic people are not those who contort themselves to fit every mold. They are those who are radiantly comfortable in their own skin. They are grounded in an internal knowing that doesn't need external validation to function. They are the ones who can offer a gentle, honest perspective, knowing that their value remains intact whether the crowd agrees or not. The shift is from focusing on being liked to focusing on being authentic. Authenticity is a steady light. Approval is a flickering spark. Embrace the beautiful truth that your true value is not something to be earned through endless accommodation. It is already yours. Reclaim the quiet sovereignty of your own heart. Release the illusion of approval and step onto the solid ground of self-respect. This is where true, lasting influence, the kind that elevates everyone around you, begins to flourish. Take a moment to notice where you recently bent your truth just to gain a moment of agreement. Gently acknowledge that choice and then affirm this simple fact. My worth is not debatable. It is inherent. I choose to anchor my confidence in my own center. Chapter 3. Boundaries are not barriers. The concept of a boundary often carries a heavy, negative emotional weight. For many, the very word conjures images of walls, separation, conflict, and emotional coldness. We envision drawing a rigid line in the sand, one that creates distance and threatens the very harmony we work so hard to maintain. This fear is especially potent when our core desire is to foster connection and keep the peace. But what if we reframe the understanding of boundaries entirely? What if we start seeing them not as barriers that push people away, but as frameworks that allow true connection to flourish? Imagine a beautiful, well-tended garden, without a defined edge, without a fence, a low wall, or a clear border. That garden becomes vulnerable. Other people's animals might wander in, weeds might take over, and the precious, delicate ecosystem inside would quickly become compromised and exhausted. The boundary is not there to keep everyone out. It is there to define and protect what is sacred inside, ensuring the garden remains healthy enough to produce beauty and nourishment for all who visit. You are that garden, and your boundaries are the graceful, necessary frameworks that define where your energy begins and ends, allowing you to sustain your own life force. The primary fear that drives people-pleasing is the belief that saying no will lead to rejection or distance. We worry that setting a limit will be interpreted as unkindness or an act of selfishness. This anxiety compels us to agree to things we don't want to do, believing that this compliance is the price of admission for love and belonging. In reality, the opposite is true. Boundaries don't create distance. They create the necessary space for genuine respect. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel the most secure and valued. These are often the relationships where the expectations are clear, where both parties feel safe expressing their needs, and where neither person fears being taken advantage of. This sense of safety and clarity is the direct result of good, healthy boundaries, whether they were explicitly stated or quietly understood. When you don't set boundaries, you teach others that your time, energy, and resources are infinitely available and endlessly negotiable. This doesn't earn you respect. It often subtly invites others to overstep and take more than you can comfortably give. They aren't doing it maliciously. They are simply responding to the signal you are unintentionally sending. I have no limits. The internal cost of this is profound. As we discussed in Chapter 1, the absence of boundaries leads to resentment, depletion, and an eventual emotional explosion. When you consistently allow your limits to be crossed, that contained pressure builds and builds until you inevitably break, often responding with disproportionate anger or withdrawing completely. This sudden, volatile response is far more damaging to the relationship than a calm, early no would ever have been. Healthy boundary setting is, in fact, an act of profound kindness to both yourself and the other person. It is kind to yourself because it preserves your mental clarity, protects your time, and honors your energy. It is kind to the other person because it sets a standard of honest communication and prevents them from accidentally hurting you or relying on you in unsustainable ways. You are giving them the gift of knowing exactly where they stand, allowing them to adjust their own plans without the shock of your eventual burnout. The key to mastering boundaries is learning to set them gracefully, without guilt, fear, or conflict. This requires shifting your internal language. A boundary is not a declaration of war. It is simply a statement of personal capacity and preference. It must be delivered not with apology or justification, but with a calm, centered clarity. When setting a boundary, Try to focus on what you will do rather than what you won't do, and use I statements to own your experience. For example, instead of saying, "I can't believe you asked me to work late again. I hate having to do this," which is accusatory and defensive, try a calmer, centered approach. "I appreciate you thinking of me for this project, and I value my commitment to getting my rest. I can stay for the next hour to finish the critical tasks, but I need to leave by 6 o'clock tonight." Notice the elements of this graceful approach. 1. Acknowledgement and validation. Start with a softening phrase acknowledging their request or effort. "I appreciate you thinking of me." This respects their perspective and shows you heard them. 2. The clear I statement. State your need clearly without guilt or lengthy justification. "I need to leave by 6, or I am prioritizing my weekend time." This owns your choice and takes responsibility for your own limit. 3. Gentle firmness. The tone must be calm, even, and non-negotiable. It is delivered as information, not a question or a timid suggestion. You are simply stating a fact about your schedule or capacity. The people pleaser often believes they must provide an elaborate excuse to justify their no. They feel the need to weave a complicated story involving a sudden appointment, a sick relative, or some insurmountable obstacle. This is unnecessary and often undermines your own credibility. When you over-justify, you are subconsciously signaling that your limit is conditional and can be debated or overcome by a better argument. When you offer a simple, centered boundary, you give the other person no room for debate. For instance, if someone asks you to volunteer for an event you simply do not have time for, pleading/weak, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I really wish I could, but my dog has an eye appointment and I've been feeling so tired lately, so I just don't think I can," invites debate on the dog's health or your energy level. Graceful/centered. "Thank you for the invitation. I won't be able to commit to that time, but I hope it's a wonderful event." Simple, clear, final. When you deliver a boundary with this kind of peaceful firmness, you are offering a form of emotional elegance. You are asserting your needs without disrupting the emotional equilibrium of the interaction. You are honoring yourself while still treating the other person with dignity. Boundaries also extend beyond time and tasks. They include emotional and psychological space. This means setting limits on the types of conversations you will engage in. E.g., "I can't talk about that difficult topic right now, but I'm happy to grab coffee next week." Unsolicited advice or criticism. E.g., "I know you mean well, but I've already made a decision on that and I don't need further input." Emotional dumping. E.g., "I hear you are struggling and I care, but I only have 5 minutes right now to talk about this, so can we schedule a longer call later?" These limits protect your inner peace and prevent you from absorbing other people's emotional chaos, ensuring you remain a calm, steady presence rather than becoming a human sponge. The true test of a boundary is consistency. A boundary set once and then immediately abandoned when challenged is not a boundary. It's a mere suggestion. People, consciously or unconsciously, will often test a new limit, particularly if they are accustomed to your compliance. They might push back, express disappointment, or even try to induce guilt. This is the critical moment where you must hold your center. You do not need to argue, defend, or apologize again. A simple, quiet repetition is often the most powerful response. "I understand you're disappointed and I still need to stick to my decision. As I mentioned, I won't be able to help with that this week." This patient, non-defensive consistency teaches others that your limits are real and must be respected. Over time, the testing stops and respect flourishes. Ultimately, boundaries are the very structures that allow for true interdependence rather than codependence. Codependence is born from a lack of boundaries, where one person's identity and well-being are wrapped up in the other's needs and approval. Interdependence, which is the cornerstone of all mature and balanced relationships, recognizes the autonomy of two whole individuals who choose to share and support each other from a place of choice, not necessity. When you stand within your own clear boundary, You are not closing the door on connection. You are creating a reliable threshold. You are inviting people to step into a relationship with the authentic, rested, and balanced you, the you who can give generously because your own well is full. This is the only sustainable way to achieve the kind of deep, peaceful harmony that you and your relationships deserve. Your boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the elegant definition of how you wish to be loved and how you choose to participate in the world. Set them with courage, deliver them with grace, and watch your relationships deepen and your inner peace stabilize. Reflect on one area in your life, time, tasks, or emotional space where you feel your energy is being drained. Formulate one clear, simple I-statement boundary you can set this week. Deliver it with calm elegance and observe the immediate peace that follows. Chapter 4. From Pleaser to Leader. For too long, we have equated compliance with connection. We've been led to believe that the path to influence is paved with agreement, and that true power lies in being indispensable, available, and universally liked. This creates a flawed and ultimately exhausting model of interaction. It forces you into the role of the pleaser, the person who constantly bends to the needs of others, hoping that this accommodation will somehow translate into respect and authority. The truth is, influence isn't born from compliance, it's born from confidence. Leadership doesn't stem from bending to others' needs, it comes from standing tall and leading from your center. The shift from pleaser to leader is not about becoming domineering or aggressive. It is a quiet, internal revolution that redefines your presence in the world. It's about moving from being a reactor to a creator, a person who sets the tone, defines the space, and establishes the balance in any room or relationship. The pleaser, by definition, is always reacting. They are waiting for a request, a cue, a need from outside themselves, and then responding instantly to satisfy it. Their energy is dictated by the external environment. This reactive stance places them constantly in a position of following, not leading. The leader, however, operates from a place of proactive clarity. They know their purpose, they understand their capacity, and they assert their needs calmly before external pressure can overwhelm them. Their energy is self-generated and stable. This transformation requires recognizing and dismantling the core belief that links your value to your utility. The pleaser believes, I am valuable only if I am useful to you. The leader understands, I am valuable, and from that fullness I choose where and how to be useful. Let's explore the profound difference between power through accommodation and influence through poise. When you accommodate constantly, you gain a fleeting, conditional kind of power. People rely on you, but they don't necessarily respect your autonomy. They come to view you as an easy option, an automatic solution, and they rarely pause to consider the cost to you. This kind of power is brittle. It shatters the moment you finally say no. True influence, the kind that lasts and elevates everyone involved, is rooted in poise. Poise is that calm, stable authority that comes from being perfectly centered. It is the quiet knowing that you are grounded in your own truth, regardless of the chaos or demands surrounding you. People are drawn to poise because it offers a sense of stability and reliability. When you are poised, people don't try to manipulate you. They look to you for direction. To cultivate this calm authority, we must practice two critical shifts: intentional pausing and decisive presence. Intentional pausing is the grace period you give yourself before you respond to any request. The pleaser's instinct is to offer an immediate, reflexive yes. This rush is driven by anxiety, the fear of a moment of silence, or the fear of disappointing the requester. The leader, understanding the gravity of their commitments, inserts a deliberate, sometimes physical pause. They might simply say, "That's a thoughtful request. Let me check my capacity and get back to you in an hour." Or, "I need a moment to consider how I can best support that." This pause is a sacred space where you reclaim your decision-making power. It allows you to consult your internal balance sheet, your energy, your current priorities, and your genuine willingness before making a commitment. This simple act immediately establishes you as a person who values their time and makes thoughtful, intentional choices, not automatic ones. Decisive presence relates to how you occupy space. Pleasers often try to minimize their presence, apologizing for their needs and using tentative language. They might say, "This is just a suggestion, but maybe we could try." Or, "I don't know if this is a good idea, but..." A leader speaks with clarity and conviction, not arrogance. They use firm, definitive language that reflects the self-trust gained from intentional pausing. When you have taken the time to consult your inner wisdom, you don't need to apologize for the answer that emerges. This decisive presence is about speaking your truth with warmth and precision. It means presenting your idea, your boundary, or your perspective without attaching an emotional apology to it. For example, instead of, "I'm so sorry, I really wanted to help, but I just don't think I can fit it in this week." Self-diminishing, apologetic. Try, "I appreciate the thought, but my schedule is currently full. I'm unable to take that on." Clear, respectful, centered. The leader creates a sense of balance not by equalizing every external demand, but by maintaining a consistent internal equilibrium. They understand that true fairness starts with being fair to themselves. When you are centered, you have the emotional bandwidth to see situations clearly, weigh the needs of others justly, and contribute from a place of genuine strength. Consider the dynamic in a group setting. The pleaser often seeks consensus by adapting their viewpoint to the loudest or most popular opinion. The leader contributes their honest, well-considered perspective, even if it differs, because they trust the value of their unique insight. They offer their view not to dominate, but to enrich the discussion and challenge the group toward a better, more balanced outcome. This shift from seeking approval to offering clarity is magnetic. People often mistake a pleaser's agreeable nature for strength, but they quickly realize it lacks substance. The true leader's calm, non-anxious presence offers genuine security. It makes others feel safe because they know exactly where you stand. There is no guesswork, no hidden resentment, just reliable clarity. To anchor yourself in this new leadership identity, start practicing calm authority in small moments. In communication, use fewer filler words that diminish your message like just, maybe, or I guess. State your needs directly. "I need to start the meeting on time. My preference is for the quieter restaurant." In time management, treat your commitments to yourself, your rest, your exercise, your quiet time as non-negotiable appointments. They are as important as any meeting on your calendar. When a request conflicts, simply respond, "I have a prior commitment at that time." No need to elaborate that the commitment is to yourself. In decision-making, when faced with a choice, ask yourself, what decision will create the most sustainable balance for my life right now? Choose that path with quiet conviction, even if it disappoints someone momentarily. The true definition of influence is the ability to affect the actions, behaviors, or opinions of others. A pleaser tries to influence others by making themselves indispensable and agreeable. A leader influences others through the integrity and authenticity of their presence. When you consistently demonstrate that you respect your own time and voice, you set a powerful, silent example. You are, in effect, teaching those around you how they too can respect themselves and how they are permitted to treat you. You become a living model of balanced self-assertion, and that modeling is the highest form of leadership. This journey is not about eliminating your kindness. It's about elevating your kindness from a compulsion to a choice. The pleaser gives out of fear. The leader gives out of abundance. Embrace the beautiful truth that your highest contribution comes not from being agreeable but from being authentic. When you lead from your center, calm, confident, and clear, you create balance not just for yourself, but you also inspire those around you to find their own true footing. You shift the dynamic from one where you are chasing validation to one where you are effortlessly attracting respect and genuine connection. Stand tall. Your balance is your authority. Your confidence is your influence. Reflect on the difference between being a follower of others' needs and a leader of your own life. Identify one decision this week where you can replace an anxious, quick yes with a calm, intentional pause. Trust that your centered presence is your greatest form of influence. Chapter 5. Recognizing the triggers. The impulse to please others rarely appears out of thin air. It is usually a conditioned, automatic response, deeply wired into our emotional system. If you want to truly shift your behavior from automatic compliance to conscious, centered choice, you must first become a skilled observer of the moments that trigger that reaction. Recognizing the triggers is the essential act of moving from unconscious reaction to mindful awareness. It's like installing an emotional radar that warns you just before the impulse to agree takes over, giving you the critical pause necessary to choose a balanced response. The triggers for people-pleasing are highly personal, but they generally fall into three common, powerful categories: family expectations, social pressure, and the fear of rejection. The weight of family expectations. For many of us, the origins of our need to please can be traced back to the dynamics of our earliest environments, our families. We learned, often through unspoken rules, that love, attention, or safety were conditional upon our behavior. Perhaps you were the good child, the one who calmed the chaos, mediated conflicts, or took on responsibilities beyond your years. You learned that your highest value was in maintaining the family's harmony, even if it meant sacrificing your own true feelings or needs. This creates a deep-seated belief: I must be agreeable to be loved. When an adult request comes along, especially one from a family member or someone who represents that early authority figure, that old programming instantly snaps into place. You might find yourself saying yes to a sibling's request for help with their move, despite your own demanding schedule, simply because the pressure to be the supportive one is overwhelming and feels non-negotiable. The trigger: a request from a long-term, familial relationship or a situation that mirrors an early childhood dynamic where conflict was penalized and compliance was rewarded. The response: the stomach clenches, the heart races slightly, and you immediately feel the pressure to perform the expected role, the helper, the mediator, the reliable one, even if it costs you dearly. The refrain: your adult worth is not measured by your childhood role. You are free to love your family while also honoring your capacity. When this trigger hits, mentally separate the person making the request from the old, familiar feeling of obligation. Remind yourself: I am safe, and my choice will not diminish my value. The echo chamber of social pressure. This trigger relates to our deep human need for belonging, the fear of being seen as the outsider, the difficult one, or the person who disrupts the social flow. Social pressure is often less about direct requests and more about the atmosphere and perceived group norms. Think about a work environment where everyone stays late, even when the work is finished, or a friend group where canceling plans is viewed as a major offense. In these situations, you say yes, not to a specific person, but to the unspoken consensus of the group. The desire to maintain group harmony and avoid social friction can be paralyzing. You might agree with an opinion you don't share, laugh at a joke that makes you uncomfortable, or go along with an activity you dread, simply because you fear the silent judgment or the subtle coldness that might come with dissent. This is the pervasive belief: I must conform to belong. The trigger: an environment where nonconformity is implicitly or explicitly punished. The feeling that all eyes are on you, waiting for your agreement, or the sense that your opinion is the only one that differs. The response: a rush of anxiety about being conspicuous, a tendency to self-censor, and the quick adoption of the group's mood or preference to become emotionally invisible. The refrain: true belonging is built on respect for your individual presence. Your unique voice is your most valuable contribution to any group. When you feel this trigger, anchor yourself by gently affirming: my voice has value, and my authenticity strengthens, not weakens, this connection. The paralyzing fear of rejection. This is perhaps the most acute trigger for people pleasers. It is the raw, primal fear that if you say no, or if you state a boundary, the other person will withdraw their affection, their respect, or their friendship. You confuse the denial of the request with the rejection of you as a person. This fear can manifest as a desperate rush to fix any emotional discomfort in the other person. If they express disappointment, sadness, or mild frustration upon your refusal, the pleaser goes into overdrive. You take on the burden of managing their feelings, instantly trying to negotiate your boundary away or offering a hurried apology for their reaction. The core belief here is, if I cause you discomfort, you will leave me. The ironic tragedy of this trigger is that by avoiding the minor discomfort of a gentle no, you invite the major, chronic discomfort of resentment into your life, which ultimately makes you a less present and less authentic friend or partner anyway. The trigger, a request from someone whose affection or professional relationship you highly value, seeing any flicker of negative emotion, disappointment, sadness, or anger in the other person following your assertion of a need. The response, a feeling of panic and a strong urge to retreat, apologize profusely, and immediately reverse your decision or boundary to make the other person happy again. The refrain, you are responsible for your actions and choices, not for the feelings and reactions of other adults. Their disappointment is their emotion to process. When this fear arises, breathe, hold your ground gently, and affirm, my integrity is worth more than their temporary comfort, transforming triggers into opportunities for strength. Recognizing these triggers is only the first step. The real power comes in transforming the moment of tension into an opportunity to practice centered choice. 1. Identify the source emotion. When the urge to people-please hits, pause and label the feeling driving it. Is it obligation, family? Is it anxiety, social pressure? Is it fear, rejection? Naming the emotion instantly weakens its power because you move from being the emotion to observing the emotion. 2. Create a physical interrupt. Break the automatic loop. If you are on the phone, take a sip of water. If you are in person, cross your hands, or gently place a hand on the table. If you are speaking, use a physical verbal cue like, that's interesting, or let me think about that for a second. This buys you time and shifts your energy from knee-jerk agreement to thoughtful deliberation. 3. Practice the center check. In that moment of pause, briefly check in with your internal balance. Ask, if I say yes right now, what part of my energy or integrity am I sacrificing? If I say no, or let me think about it, will my core values remain intact? Always choose the option that honors your highest commitment, your own well-being. 4. Plan for the reaction. The pleaser's mind catastrophizes. It imagines the worst possible fallout. Instead, plan for a realistic reaction. If you say no, the other person will likely be momentarily disappointed, but they will adjust. Rehearse a short, non-defensive sentence to handle the pushback, such as, I hear that this isn't what you hoped for, and this is still the decision I need to make for myself. This preparation dissolves the panic. By diligently recognizing and managing these triggers, you are not becoming less kind or less connected. You are simply learning to create a space between the stimulus and your response, a space filled with calm intention and sovereign choice. This allows your kindness to flow from a place of true generosity, not from a fear-based obligation. You are reclaiming your energy from the past and anchoring it firmly in the present, ready to choose balance and grace every single time. Which of the three main triggers, family expectations, social pressure, or fear of rejection, feels most powerful in your life right now? Be compassionate as you observe it. This week, try to create a deliberate, 3-second pause the next time that specific trigger occurs and just breathe before you speak. Chapter 6. The Power of Saying No with Grace. We've established that saying an untrue yes is a quiet form of self-betrayal, leading to resentment and depletion. Now we arrive at the heart of the matter: how to deliver the necessary no in a way that is firm, kind, and elegant. This is the art of graceful refusal, a skill that defines the transition from pleaser to a centered individual with calm authority. Many people-pleasers believe that no is inherently harsh, a jarring disruption to harmony. They imagine the refusal landing like a heavy stone, creating instant conflict. Because of this perception, they often avoid the word entirely, replacing it with vague excuses, agonizing delays, or a half-hearted, resentful agreement. The truth is, the word no is not the problem, the delivery is. A no delivered with anxiety, excessive justification, or a torrent of apologies sounds weak and invites debate. A no delivered with calm, centered grace is simply a statement of fact, a boundary, and a marker of self-respect. It doesn't disrupt harmony, it defines it. The power of saying no with grace lies in its ability to simultaneously honor your truth and honor the relationship. It is the ultimate expression of balanced self-care. To master this elegant refusal, we must adopt a simple three-part framework: acknowledge, state, and close. Part 1. Acknowledge the softening introduction. Before you deliver the refusal, lead with a softening statement that acknowledges the person and their request. This demonstrates that you have listened, you respect them, and you are not reacting defensively. This step is about respecting the other person's experience. Do not apologize for your limits. Instead, express genuine appreciation, empathy, or acknowledgement. This keeps the tone warm and avoids the harshness you fear. If it's a request for your time, thank you so much for thinking of me for this. If it's a commitment or task, I appreciate you bringing this idea forward. If it involves their feelings or a difficult situation, I understand this is a priority for you and I hear how much this means. These phrases maintain connection. They show that your no is coming from a place of considered choice, not indifference. Part 2. State the clear, centered refusal. This is the most critical part, the delivery of the no. It must be direct, concise, and definitive. Avoid hedging language like "I might not be able to" or "I don't think I can." Those phrases leave an opening for negotiation and pressure. Use clear I statements to own your reality without feeling the need to over-justify. Remember, your limit is a fact, not a negotiable suggestion. Keep it short, kind, and firm. I won't be able to take that on right now. My capacity is full at the moment, so I must pass. That doesn't align with my priorities for this month. No, that doesn't work for me. The power of this step is in its simplicity. The pleaser feels compelled to provide a multi-paragraph explanation, the dreaded excuse-making. The graceful refusal requires only one clear sentence. The less you say, the less there is to debate. When you offer an excuse, you give the requester a target to shoot down. When you offer a boundary, you simply state a truth. Part 3. Close the bridge to future connection. A graceful no shouldn't end the conversation. It should offer a path forward, maintaining the integrity of the relationship. This is where you demonstrate that the refusal of the request is not a rejection of the person. You can close by offering an alternative, a referral, or a simple, confident restatement of good wishes. This demonstrates a willingness to help within your boundaries, which is the definition of true generosity. Offer a gentle alternative. I can't do the whole project, but I can dedicate 1 hour on Tuesday to help you brainstorm. A partial yes that respects the boundary. I can't lend you the money, but I can connect you with the financial advisor I used. A helpful alternative. I can't attend the event on Saturday, but please send me pictures. I hope it's a wonderful time. Expressing goodwill. The art of the graceful no is in the sandwich method. Start warm, be firm in the middle, and finish warm. Example scenarios in action. Scenario 1, the urgent, non-essential task. Request: can you please stay an extra 2 hours tonight? We have this urgent, last-minute thing. Acknowledge: I understand this is a busy time for the team. State: I have a non-negotiable commitment tonight, so I must stick to my regular schedule. Close: I can finish X and Y before I go, and we can pick up the rest first thing tomorrow morning. Scenario 2, the social obligation. Request: We're throwing a huge party this weekend. You have to come. You desperately need quiet rest. Acknowledge, that sounds like a fantastic time and I appreciate the invitation. State, I've committed my weekend to quiet rest and recovery, so I won't be able to make it. Close, I look forward to hearing all about it next week. Scenario 3, the money or item loan. Request, could you lend me a significant amount of money until next month? Acknowledge, I hear that you're in a tight spot and I value our relationship. State, my personal rule is not to lend money. Close, is there another way I could support you right now, like helping you look at resources? Navigating the guilt and pushback. Even when delivered perfectly, a refusal may still trigger discomfort either in you or in the requester. This is natural. Your responsibility is to manage your own feelings, not theirs. The guilt you feel is often residual emotional programming, the trigger we discussed. When it flares up, mentally label it. That is just the feeling of old obligation. It is not the truth of the situation. Then, gently remind yourself, I have chosen integrity over compliance. This act of self-validation reinforces your new pattern. Pushback. If the requester pushes back, tries to guilt you, or says, but you always do this for me, you must deploy the broken record technique. Do not get drawn into a defensive debate. Simply and calmly repeat your boundary in different, gentle words. I understand your disappointment and I still need to hold to my boundary tonight. I appreciate you asking, and my answer remains the same. That doesn't change the fact that I can't take that on right now. When you refuse to engage in the argument and simply hold the line with non-anxious presence, the pushback quickly dissipates. The other person realizes your no is firm, not defensive, and they move on. The ability to say no with grace is a hallmark of the true leader. It is an act of deep honesty that creates clarity in the relationship. When you are honest about your limits, you create a space where true, sustainable harmony can thrive. You stop building a peace based on sacrifice and start building one based on mutual respect. This kind of interaction elevates everyone involved. Embrace the word no not as a word of conflict, but as a powerful word of self-preservation and clarity. Delivered with kindness and poise, it is one of the most generous things you can offer to yourself and to the world. It is the perfect, elegant balance between self-care and respect for others. Identify one request you currently regret saying yes to. Imagine how you could retroactively apply the acknowledge, state, close framework to that situation. Practice saying the centered refusal out loud to yourself. Feel the quiet, confident relief of honoring your own needs. Chapter 7. Reclaiming your voice. The journey of the pleaser often involves a gradual, quiet act of self-silencing. To keep the peace, to avoid conflict, and to secure approval, we learn to bite our tongues, to swallow our opinions, and to let our genuine needs fade into the background. The silence becomes a habit, a reflex, the path of least resistance. But that silence comes at a profound cost. When you consistently silence your authentic voice, you create a profound internal pressure. It is the pressure of being perpetually unheard, of carrying opinions and desires that never see the light of day. This hidden burden leads not to genuine peace, but to emotional dullness and a slow erosion of your personality. Reclaiming your voice is not about becoming loud or argumentative. It is about reconnecting with your authentic self and learning to express it with clarity and conviction, ensuring that your inner world and your outer expression are finally in harmony. This is the essence of true self-respect, giving your internal truth a safe, reliable path to expression. The silence, a trade-off that never pays. For the pleaser, silence is often a strategic trade-off. We trade our truth for what we perceive as immediate harmony. We think, if I just don't say anything, everything will be fine. I'll avoid the tension. The flaw in this trade-off is twofold. 1. You sacrifice depth. A relationship where one person consistently self-edits is inherently shallow. It lacks the richness, complexity, and trust that comes from honest exchange. The other person is in a relationship with a carefully curated version of you, not the real, whole you. 2. You breed resentment. Every opinion left unsaid, every need repressed, becomes a small seed of bitterness. When this internal resentment grows large enough, it inevitably poisons the relationship, often erupting in passive-aggressive behaviors or sudden, dramatic withdrawals. The temporary peace bought by silence is always paid for later with interest in the currency of inner unrest. To reclaim your voice, you must first acknowledge that your opinions, your preferences, and your needs are valid simply because they are yours. They do not need external justification or a universal consensus to deserve expression. Phase 1. Finding the whispers. Before you can speak with conviction to the world, you must first learn to listen to the subtle voice within. Years of pleasing can make this inner voice feel like a faint whisper, easily drowned out by the noise of other people's needs. Practice intentional self-listening through quiet moments of reflection. Before you enter a social or professional situation, ask yourself, what do I genuinely want from this interaction? What is my true, unedited opinion on this topic? What is the one thing I need to advocate for in this moment? This process is about identifying the center of your own desire, your authentic yes or no, before the external pressure begins to influence you. It's an act of self-consultation, a quiet moment of finding your personal equilibrium. When you feel tension or discomfort, don't rush to fix the external situation. Instead, pause and ask, what is the hidden need beneath this tension? Often, the tension you feel is your silenced voice trying desperately to get your attention. Phase 2. Speaking with clarity, not conflict. The pleaser often fears that speaking up means creating an argument. The key to reclaiming your voice with grace is learning to speak with clarity and conviction without losing warmth or composure. This is not about winning a debate. It is about making a simple, elegant contribution to the shared space. Use I statements to own your truth. To speak without aggression, focus on your own experience rather than accusing or labeling others. I statements make your feelings and thoughts non-negotiable facts, specific to you. Instead of, you always talk over me and it's rude. Accusatory invites defense. Try, I need a moment to finish my thought before moving on. States a need clearly. Instead of, this plan is terrible and you should change it. Judgmental. Try, I feel concerned about the timeline of this plan and I would prefer to suggest an alternative approach. Owns the feeling, offers an alternative. When you express yourself this way, you are not attacking the other person's reality. You are simply stating your own. This leaves no room for defensiveness, only for acknowledgement. Practice the art of the soft opening. Just as with setting boundaries, you can introduce your perspective with a gentle opening that respects the listener. This ensures your message lands softly, even if the content is firm. I see your point clearly, and I also hold a slightly different view on the resources we need. I appreciate your passion on this topic, and I feel compelled to share my experience from a different angle. This approach models the kind of balanced discourse that leads to true, productive harmony, not the forced silence of false peace. Phase 3. Holding the space for your word. A pleaser often takes back their statement the moment they encounter resistance or emotional discomfort in the listener. This teaches others that your voice is unreliable and easily overridden. To speak with conviction is to hold the space for the words you've delivered, even when it feels uncomfortable. This doesn't mean digging in your heels. It means maintaining your calm presence after the statement is made. If someone reacts with surprise, pushback, or disappointment, resist the urge to fill the silence or apologize. Simply allow their reaction to exist without taking responsibility for it. Silence is your ally. After you've spoken your truth, the power often lies in the silence that follows. Let the other person process your statement. Do not rush to justify, explain, or soften your words. Stand in your truth and let your centered presence carry the conviction of your message. Recognizing the difference between conflict and clarity, the pleaser often views any disagreement as conflict. The centered person views the honest expression of differing views as clarity. Conflict is destructive. Clarity is necessary for growth. When you speak authentically, you are inviting clarity. You are saying, "This is who I am and what I need, and now we can proceed based on this shared truth." This removes the guesswork and builds a foundation of genuine trust. Reclaiming your voice is a monumental act of self-integration. It is the final step in ensuring that the person you are on the inside, the person with depth, needs, and valuable insight, is the same person you confidently present to the world. Your voice is not a tool for fighting. It is an instrument for harmonizing your inner and outer worlds. Use it with kindness, precision, and the quiet conviction that your truth is essential to the balance of every relationship you are in. When you speak from your center, your words carry weight, influence, and the beautiful warmth of authenticity. Listen closely to your inner monologue today. When you find yourself wanting to say something but silencing it, pause. Identify the specific, simple sentence you withheld. Practice speaking that sentence to yourself or to a trusted person. Embrace the gentle power of your emerging, authentic voice. Chapter 8. The balance between harmony and honesty. We arrive now at the fundamental tension that defines the journey of the recovering people-pleaser, the perceived clash between harmony and honesty. For so long, we operated under the assumption that these two virtues were mutually exclusive. We believed that to maintain smooth, peaceful relationships, the harmony we deeply crave, we had to sacrifice our truth. We had to pretend. This kind of harmony, however, is a fragile construction. It's a peace built on pretense, a quiet landscape built on hidden compromise. It may look tranquil on the surface, but it lacks the deep, enduring strength of truth. Like a perfectly painted facade over a crumbling wall, it is beautiful but ultimately unstable. The goal is not to choose between harmony and honesty. The goal is to discover the equilibrium where they coexist, strengthening and stabilizing one another. Genuine, lasting harmony isn't the absence of disagreement. It is the presence of authentic, respectful engagement. The myth of painful honesty. One of the greatest fears that drives the desire to please is the belief that honesty must be painful. We associate speaking our truth with arguments, wounded feelings, and the potential rupture of connection. This fear often stems from past experiences where disagreement was handled poorly, perhaps with explosive anger or cold withdrawal. But honest communication does not have to be a weapon. When wielded with grace, it is a tool for clarity and intimacy. Think of a bridge. If the foundations of the bridge are built on lies, avoidance, or self-censorship, that bridge is inherently weak. It can't withstand the natural, everyday stresses of life, the strong winds of differing opinions, the heavy traffic of big decisions. However, a bridge built on solid, honest communication can endure immense pressure because its structure is sound. To create this sustainable harmony, you must shift your mindset. Honesty is not a threat to connection. It is the prerequisite for intimacy. When you speak your truth kindly and clearly, you are giving the other person a gift. The gift of knowing and connecting with the real you. You are showing them that you respect them enough to be real, and that is a far deeper bond than agreeing just to stay safe. Modeling authentic dialogue. Creating the balance between harmony and honesty requires you to be the one who models authentic dialogue. You set the tone for the interaction, demonstrating that it is possible to hold a differing opinion while retaining a warm and connected demeanor. This modeling involves two core practices. 1. Communicate with calm. When you need to express an honest truth, perhaps a boundary, a difference of opinion, or a difficult need, ensure your delivery is grounded and non-anxious. If you deliver your truth with nervous energy, apology, or defensiveness, the listener will react to your anxiety before they even hear your words. Practice bringing your voice down a notch, taking a deep breath, and speaking in an even, measured tone. The calmness of your presentation validates the legitimacy of your perspective. It signals that this is not an emotional outburst or an attack. It is simply information that needs to be acknowledged for the relationship to function well. 2. Focus on both and thinking. The pleaser often sees relationships in terms of either or. Either I get what I want or they get what they want. Either we have peace or we have a fight. A balanced approach embraces the complexity of both and. It recognizes that two seemingly opposing truths can coexist. I value your friendship greatly, and I need to protect my weekend time. I see the benefits of your proposal, and I have concerns about the budget. I hear your disappointment, and I must stick to my capacity. The word "and" acts as a powerful connector, bridging two realities instead of positioning them as a destructive opposition. It maintains connection while affirming your truth, building a composite harmony based on acknowledged reality. The principle of non-attachment to outcome. A critical element in mastering this balance is recognizing that your responsibility is for your honesty, not for the other person's reaction. When you speak your truth, whether it's a no, an honest opinion, or a request for a change, you have done your part. You have established clarity. The other person is now fully responsible for how they receive and process that clarity. The pleaser feels compelled to manage the recipient's disappointment or frustration. The centered person acknowledges the feeling but does not take ownership of it. If someone gets upset when you set a boundary, you can offer compassion without retreating. I understand this is frustrating news for you. Acknowledging their feeling, and I still need to hold to my commitment to my family this week. Affirming your truth. You are not being cruel, you are being clear. You are allowing the necessary emotional ripples of honest communication to settle, trusting that the relationship built on reality is resilient enough to handle them. Any relationship that shatters over a kind, honest, and gracefully delivered truth was likely built on that fragile, pretense-based harmony to begin with. Harmony as a co-created space. True harmony is not a state you achieve alone by sacrificing yourself. It is a co-created space. It requires both parties to bring their authentic selves to the table and operate with mutual respect. When you practice honest communication, you teach others to trust your words. They know that when you say yes, it is a full, genuine commitment. You invite them to be honest in return. By modeling authenticity, you create a safer space for them to express their own needs and reservations. This transparency creates a feedback loop of respect. The relationship moves from a guessing game, where everyone walks on eggshells trying to maintain a brittle peace, to a clear, negotiated partnership built on mutual understanding. This is the highest form of connection, one where your true, unedited self is not just tolerated, but welcomed and integrated into the shared equilibrium. The honesty creates the depth, and that depth is what makes the harmony unshakable. Embrace the beautiful clarity that comes from saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and allowing the truth to establish the only kind of peace that is truly worth keeping. Consider a relationship where you currently withhold a truth for the sake of quiet. Gently re-examine that situation. What would happen if you used a simple both and statement to introduce your honesty with warmth? Trust that the integrity of the truth will ultimately lead to a deeper, more sustainable peace. Chapter 9. From Resentment to Respect. Resentment is one of the most insidious byproducts of people-pleasing. It is a slow-acting poison that begins within you but eventually contaminates every corner of your relationships. It is the inescapable price paid for forced compliance. When you say yes but mean no, your body and spirit register that compliance as a self-betrayal, and the resulting bitterness festers, unspoken and often unacknowledged. The shift from living in a state of quiet resentment to one of mutual respect is the journey from obligation to choice. This transformation is absolutely essential because you cannot build a healthy, balanced relationship on a foundation of suppressed anger and feeling taken advantage of. The toxic cycle of resentment. Resentment operates in a toxic cyclical pattern. 1. Compliance. A request is made, and you say yes out of fear, obligation, or the need to please, overriding your true capacity or desire. 2. Internal protest. Immediately, your inner self registers the injustice. You feel drained, irritated, or angry at the person who asked, but also critically at yourself for failing to set a boundary. 3. Passive aggression. Because you fear expressing the resentment directly, it leaks out sideways. You might procrastinate on the task, perform it poorly, complain about the requester to others, or even become subtly cold and withdrawn towards them. 4. Relationship damage. The other person senses the negative shift, your lukewarm delivery, your avoidance, or your lack of enthusiasm, but they don't understand the cause. This creates confusion, distance, and a slow erosion of genuine connection. The bitter irony is that we comply to save the relationship, but the resulting resentment is what slowly, surely, destroys it. The person you are trying to please ends up with a resentful helper, which is far worse for the relationship than a kind, honest refusal would have been. The power of genuine choice. The antidote to resentment is the consistent practice of genuine choice. When you shift your perspective, you realize that even when you do decide to say yes, it should never be out of compulsion. It must be a conscious, intentional, and generous offering that you have evaluated against your own needs. When you operate from choice, you step into a powerful, adult space of autonomy. You are no longer the victim of someone else's request. You are the sovereign decider of your time and energy. To make this shift, you must learn to internalize the pause before commitment. In that quiet moment of reflection, you need to acknowledge the feeling of obligation and then actively overrule it with intentional thought. Ask yourself two powerful questions. 1. Am I saying yes because I genuinely want to, or because I'm afraid of what will happen if I say no? 2. If I proceed, can I commit to doing this with a full heart and without demanding an invisible emotional return? If the answer to the first question is fear, you must change your answer to no. If the answer to the second question is no, if you know you will expect the person to owe you later, you must also say no, because that is not a gift. It is a loan with hidden interest. When you genuinely choose your commitments, something profound happens. The feeling of obligation disappears. You proceed not with a heavy sigh, but with a light heart, because you are in alignment. This is the difference between forced labor and a chosen contribution. Respect, the natural consequence of clarity. When you move from forced compliance to genuine choice, the external result is the cultivation of mutual respect. Respect is not something you beg for. It is something you command through your behavior. 1. Self-respect is primary. By consistently honoring your own capacity and setting graceful boundaries, you communicate to the world that you are a person whose time and energy is valuable. You are demonstrating self-respect, and others take their cues from you. When you respect yourself, they know where the line is and they will respect it too. 2. Clarity breeds trust. When you are clear and honest in your yes and your no, people learn to trust your word implicitly. They know your agreement is sincere and your refusal is not malicious. This clarity is an immense relief in any relationship. People prefer the honest truth, even if it is momentarily inconvenient, over the confusion of passive-aggressive resentment. 3. Respect for others' autonomy. A centered person understands that every other adult is responsible for their own well-being. When you say a clear, kind no, you are not abandoning them. You are simply affirming their own strength and capacity to solve their problems. You respect their ability to adjust and find an alternative solution. This is far more empowering than swooping in to rescue them at the cost of your own peace. The person who always complies is treated with conditional appreciation. The person who chooses their contributions is treated with unconditional respect. transforming resentment into responsibility. If you find yourself still wrestling with old resentment, feelings of bitterness about past oversights or sacrifices, you must perform an act of emotional cleanup. This isn't about blaming the person who asked. It's about taking responsibility for your own past compliance. 1. Acknowledge your choice. Remind yourself they asked, but I was the one who said yes. I chose to override my boundary. This is not self-blame. It is an act of reclaiming your power. It liberates the other person from the unfair burden of your resentment. 2. Forgive the past. Gently forgive yourself for not knowing how to set boundaries then. Be compassionate toward the version of you who was operating out of fear. 3. Establish the new normal. Use the framework from Chapter 6, Acknowledge, State, Close, to address any existing commitment that is currently breeding resentment. You can gracefully renegotiate or terminate a commitment that no longer serves your balance, using a kind, honest, and clear conversation. For example, you might say, I love helping you with this and I realize I overcommitted. To keep our friendship strong, I need to adjust my role starting next week. I can do X, but I must step away from Y. This proactive, clear communication transforms a toxic, lingering resentment into a healthy, respectful negotiation. You are replacing hidden anger with visible integrity. The ultimate goal of this journey is to move through life feeling lighter, clearer, and more at peace. That lightness is the feeling of having no emotional debt, no resentment owed, no hidden anger stored. It is the natural feeling of a soul operating in perfect, self-chosen balance, earning the deepest respect from others because it first perfected the art of self-respect. Where in your life do you feel the heavy weight of resentment? Identify one commitment that you currently fulfill out of obligation. Use your new self-respect to either renegotiate that commitment with clear, kind honesty or transform your attitude toward it by consciously choosing it from a place of genuine contribution. Chapter 10. Standing tall in your own center. We have arrived at the destination of this journey, and it is precisely where you were meant to be all along, with yourself fully present and firmly centered. This final chapter is not about learning a new technique. It's about integration. It's about weaving together the threads of boundaries, authentic voice, and self-respect that we've explored, creating a cohesive, unshakable presence that defines your influence in the world. Standing tall in your own center is the ultimate realization of the balanced life. It means your actions flow not from external pressure or fear, but from an internal reservoir of calm, self-defined authority. The architecture of a centered life. Imagine your life as a magnificent structure. For the pleaser, this structure often had weak walls, poor boundaries, a muted facade, silenced voice, and was built on shaky ground, dependence on external approval. The structure was easily swayed by the winds of others' needs. The centered life has a robust, elegant architecture built on 3 stabilizing pillars. Pillar 1. Defined edges, boundaries. You now understand that boundaries are not hostile barriers. They are the necessary, graceful frames that preserve your personal peace. They are the elegant ways you define where you begin and where others end. A person with clear boundaries has a predictable, trustworthy structure. People know your limits, and they respect them because you respect them first. Integration practice. Your boundary isn't something you must defend in a fight. It's something you must maintain with non-anxious consistency. It becomes a quiet truth about you, like the color of your eyes or the sound of your voice. Pillar 2. Authentic expression, voice. Your reclaimed voice is the vibrant color of your structure. It means the language you use externally matches the truth you hold internally. You speak with clarity, conviction, and warmth, understanding that honesty is the foundation of genuine intimacy. You no longer fear the temporary ripple of disagreement because you trust the deep resilience of the connection built on truth. Integration practice. Use I statements in moments of tension. Practice contributing your genuine thought, even a small preference in group settings. Let your true opinions, not the mirrored opinions of others, be known with confidence. Pillar 3. Internal locus of worth presence. This is the very foundation, the solid ground beneath your feet. You are no longer chasing the illusion of external approval. Your worth is an inherent state, not an earned reward. Your presence, the way you walk, sit, listen, and speak, carries a quiet, unshakable certainty. This groundedness is what effortlessly shifts you from a compliant pleaser to a calm leader. Integration practice. Stop consulting external metrics, likes, praises, agreements to determine if you are okay. Instead, consult your inner compass. Am I in integrity? Am I at peace? Trust that answer above all others. The gift of non-anxious presence. When these three pillars are integrated, you achieve what is often called a non-anxious presence. This is the greatest gift you can offer any relationship or environment. The pleaser is often an anxious presence. Their fear of disapproval creates a tense energy that seeks to control the outcome of the interaction. This nervousness can actually make others feel less safe, prompting them to push harder or withdraw. The centered person stands quietly confident, not needing the environment to be a certain way for them to be all right. When you are non-anxious, you are fully present, a steady anchor in any storm. People find this presence magnetic and reassuring. When you remain calm and stable while others are reactive, you naturally invite them to find their own calm. You become a regulator of balance in your relationships simply by maintaining your own. This is the essence of true influence. You don't persuade people with force or manipulation. You influence them with the strength of your settled self. You lead by modeling what a life lived in balance looks like. Freedom from the burden to please. The final, most beautiful realization on this path is the profound freedom that comes when you fully drop the burden to please. That burden was never your responsibility. It was a self-imposed assignment based on the mistaken belief that your job was to manage other people's emotional comfort. Real freedom is understanding that every adult is sovereign. They are capable of managing their own feelings, choices, and adjustments. Your job is to be the best, clearest, and most authentic version of you. When you stand tall in your own center, you release that burden and two things immediately change. 1. Your generosity becomes pure. When you say yes, it is now a joyful contribution, a pure offering from a full heart, free of any unspoken expectation of return. It is true, beautiful generosity. 2. Your relationships are real. The people who stay in your life after you establish your center are the ones who value you, not your utility. They value your truth, your clarity, and your strength. These connections are deep, resilient, and life-giving. If you find that some relationships struggle with the new, centered you, remember that the pain of the transition is minor compared to the lifelong pain of emotional slavery. Any connection that requires you to shrink yourself or hide your truth is not a connection built for your highest good. Your continuing practice. The work of staying centered is not a one-time achievement. It is a gentle, daily practice of awareness and adjustment. Life will inevitably try to nudge you off your center with new demands, unforeseen pressures, and moments of anxiety. Your commitment now is to the immediate moment. Every single request, every interaction, is an opportunity to practice aligned response. Pause, breathe, feel your feet on the ground. Consult your three pillars. Does this honor my boundary? Does this align with my authentic voice? Is this choice rooted in my inner worth? Respond with clarity and grace. This commitment to self-honesty is the pathway to a life that is not merely peaceful but truly balanced, a life where you move with ease, influence with integrity, and stand tall, unburdened, and free. You are now the architect of your own equilibrium. Walk forward, grounded, influential, and fully, beautifully yourself. Take a deep breath and feel the weight lifting off your shoulders. What is one personal commitment to your own well-being that you will make non-negotiable this week? Affirm your freedom. I am grounded in my own center, and my influence flows from my peace.